So Martin Zudolf, my supervisor, he's lecturing the class Applied Poultry Science every year in fall. And for this class, we every year have an experiment. And this year, when I was following the class, he designed an experiment with feed restriction broilers. So what he did is we fed several groups of birds, some ad libitum and some restricted in week 2 or in week 3 of life, and several different levels. So 70 to 90 in week 2 and 80 to 95 in week 3. So he had to apologize because he had teaching obligations. He couldn't be here today. He designed this experiment, and then we as students, we performed the experiment. We weighed birds weekly because we wanted to know what the overall growth performance was. We did weekly dissections because we also wanted to know how the effect was on the growth of the different parts of the animals. And we also weighed the feed because we were feed restricted them. So we had to know how much feed we had to give them, but also because we wanted to know what the feed conversion ratio was for these birds. And as students were performing it, we had really nice weekly labs all together, and we were taught how to dissect a bird actually, how to handle the birds, etc. So there were 2 parts of this study. The first part was actually the teaching part. So as our group of students, we had to write a report about the results of the trial, either in a group report or individual, and we performed a 50-minute presentation all together to some of you here from the industry. This actually made us really translate the research result to understandable format for you. So what can you do with it? That was also the main objective from Martin, how to get students translate research to practice. So the students then gave some feedback to us, and I did that as well. So what I found is that was really a learning experience by being around. So being around the birds, handle them, weigh them, also getting questions while being around the birds and ask them, get interactive teaching experiments. So hands-on learning as well. And then communicating the results. So really talk poultry. And most of you know that it's really important to be able to understand each other, to communicate about what your main goal is to produce a good flock of birds. And the students need to learn that to be able to talk poultry. They had also some advice for us because we had quite a big group size, so dissection were pretty full. So we were over 30 students, and it was really hard to get everyone really engaged. So that was one advice, to limit the group size. And also involvement in writing the experiment. Some people were really confused in the beginning. Okay, what are we actually doing now? Because they had no previous experience with designing experiments, performing experiments. So that was the other thing. Then maybe more interesting for you guys, what was the result of the study with the restriction? What the birds experienced was compensatory growth. So after the second or the third week that they were restricted, they grew faster. So in the end of the trial, at 35 days, they all weighed the same. There was no difference in body weight. So all birds caught up. The second thing was that what we expected was that they were more efficient with using their feet. They weren't. They were all the same. No result in efficiency. But what we did see is that when you give a very severe restriction in the second week of life, so only give 70% of what they would like to eat, we saw a reduction in fat packed growth. We did some modeling studies, on the results, and we saw that it can affect the growth of the fat pad. For the other part, for the grower phase, so the third week of life, we saw that for the severe treatment, the breast muscles were smaller. So that actually does affect the growth of the bird and the final, what you get for your bird, what you want, the breast muscle. So the main message from the broilers was go big or go home. Give us really a lot less feed, because with a little less, we won't show you any result. So a question for you guys: if you have any ideas or suggestions for research within this course, contact me or contact Martin, and mark the date because the next presentation is on November 30th. Thank you.